Oh, okay. Well, this is something different. A video game review. It's been a while. The last game that I reviewed was Elex 2, many months ago, and I think Elden Ring before that. Just been a few this year. There have not been a lot of good games worth reviewing, although I do have a lot of PC games that I've not gotten around to because I need to upgrade my shit. So, I played Steelrising on the PS5. I had no problems with it. It really the major notes to make is that it plays very well for a game from Spiders. And if you'll recall, and you probably won't, last year I played through most of everything Spiders has published or developed and released. Now, some of these games were half finished. Most of them were half broken, and Greedfall was the first time they made anything halfway decent, and I really liked that game. Uh, so them stepping into what they were calling a Soulsborne influenced game was kind of frightening because it might be unfinished, it might be complete shit. I knew it would probably be wonky, but it's a team of 75 people. I can't fault them for not meeting the highest possible standard. But I really didn't have to make those excuses for this game. It played well. The presentation is extremely tight. Everything is buttoned up. I didn't have any crashes. There were no stupid hitching events. There was no cheapness in terms of the enemy placement or the balance of the single player campaign. Um, this was just a really well done thing that was scaled to a point where they knew they could get it done. And I'm impressed with the production that resulted because it's one of the second time where I felt like, all right, this is a studio that can make a game, and they've managed this project very well. In previews, this was sold to me as uh, well, there was a weird Pinocchio, like Bloodborne game that came out at the same time, and I thought this was the same thing, but this was sort of sold as a French Revolution Bloodborne. It's really not that, uh, but you could play it that way because the combat has some customization options that work if you want to play it that way. I sort of did. The big thing with this game, the big comparison I would make is basically the Surge 2 if you had a jump button. And what I mean is the location design being a little bit knotted together, but not too complex. The progression of enemies being somewhat samey, and the areas being uh, predictably within a realistically created environment, all kind of make for a experience that you remember as a sort of contained one. But you do go from area to area, and there are differences between those areas that are significant. Um, so I'm not really going to get into the story because I do enough of that in the review. You could read about that. But um, yes, the faces of some of the NPCs and story-related characters are a little bit goofy looking, but they're pretty good for this level of production. And a lot of that comes sort of front and center, but not in a comical way. It's not the cheesiest thing. All the performances are earnest. It's all a very serious tone. So you can't help but kind of become immersed or just laugh the whole time. It's really up to you and how you perceive it. I liked that they kept a serious tone and didn't attempt to make jokes out of the sort of alternate reality French Revolution that was going on around us. There was real death and real cost of human lives involved, and a really interesting mystery at the center of the story. So I had a lot of fun with that. And the mystery, I hadn't had it figured all out until much later. They did have to spell a couple things out to me. I really didn't know who Aegis, the main character, would actually be, but all that came together in an interesting way. Um, uh, Now, this is a type of game where they wanted to make a Soulsborne, but they made the story so prominent that, unfortunately, I don't know how badly you're going to want to replay it because you'll have seen all the content, but you probably won't have tried all the weapons. Now, are these different? Are these builds different? Are these four classes different enough to where you really need to replay the game four times? Not at all. I think you could switch between a lot of different weapons and get the idea pretty quickly. But Um, the only reason I would play it again is sort of test out how fun it would be to cheese certain things with very strong builds. Like I think the Alchemist build is sort of under tried with a lot of people. I think that the amount of grenades that I used, the alchemical elemental effect grenades I used, could lead to really just beating the game with grenades, and that would be funny to watch for a minute, you know. Um, so they give you a lot of options. They put a lot of time into it, but they didn't make a big enough game that you might want to try other things, that you might want to get enough stats to try something else different. You really should focus on your primary stat, max it out first, and just build up your survivability with your modular options. And what I mean is you can upgrade weapons to the point where, that it scales off that stat, that primary stat, to the point where anyone will carry you through the game. And you can use these modules to prevent anything that's lacking in your arsenal. So if you don't have enough armor, you can put you can put 3 different armor modules in here and not have to worry about that stat at all. So there are ways that you can get creative with these builds. It's almost too much. They spent so much time on this systems and the options available to the player that it starts to skew towards like I have too many options and not enough game to play. And that's always a bad place with sort of the Soulsborne or even Metroidvania sort of game is you just got the best weapon in the game and you're 2 hours from beating it. And that's kind of how I felt with this game was I got what was it um, Requiem Mallet here, and I was very close to the end of the game. I upgraded it immediately, saw that it was kind of slow. I was disappointed, and I went back to my starting weapon again, which had been effective throughout the whole game. And there's there's a 10 damage difference between those two weapons, fully upgraded. So uh, it's not a hard game. Yeah, I played it for 24 hours total, and I had a lot of fun with it. I found it very immersive. I thought it was very polished in general. Yeah, there's some cheapness and rough edges, but all things considered, I had a lot of fun with this game, and that's what kind of counts. I think it's a little overpriced at $49.99 when I bought it, but I wasn't disappointed with that. It's a game that I'll keep. I'm glad to have it on the shelf and enjoy it. So 70, a moderate recommendation seems a little bit low, but it's really relative to the full lifespan of what I will get out of this game and this box. Like I'm probably only ever going to play it 3 times in my life, unless video games stop getting made for another few years. So take that as you will. I don't think the game gives enough incentive to replay it. Just the same way with the Surge, it really doesn't. Um, so take that as you will. I would say check it out on a sale. But I think it would be totally acceptable to pay $30 for this game. I think it's enough fun, and you won't be stuck on the difficulty for sure, unless you're just bad at these games. So it's worth checking out, and there you go.